Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and it's another episode of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. And with me is a man from the past, Mr. Forrest Bennett. It's been quite a while. Welcome back. Yeah,
I know it's been over. I'm overdue for an appearance on this show.
you're way overdue, and I'm so thankful for you to, make some time tonight for the show. So, how's everything with you? It's been a while.
I've been very busy.
Yeah.
Very working on various projects. And where I say working on various projects, going to shows and movies.
Perfect. Story of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really nice to see you again. So welcome back.
Thanks.
And tonight we are going to be discussing a filmmaker who you haven't really heard from nowadays. He was popular in the 80s and 90s, and his name is Chuck Russell, or Charles Russell. He's notable for a few blockbusters here and there.
A lot of genre picks.
Yeah, basically sci-fi and horror and action were his forte. And he started out producing in the early 80s. His first major film, I believe, was Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
The Dream Warrior.
Yeah.
That was his directorial debut.
Indeed. And then he kind of moved on to more horror with the
remake of
the Blob remake in 1988.
Which we just finished watching.
Yeah, because I just wanted to have a little more Chuck Russell in my head that was fresh, and I'm glad that we saw that movie. It's a really fun movie,
yes.
By the way. Really,
same with Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Indeed.
And yeah, I am sporting a double feature t-shirt.
Very appropriate. Thank you for that. But I think The Blob is the much better film, in my opinion.
It's close for me.
Yeah.
I think they're both excellent movies. Both were very well made. Have a lot of style, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Great soundtracks.
That's true. But for me, I think The Blob holds a special place in my heart. It's just so gory and so wonderful. It's just such a treat to see that on screen. I mean, the 80s were notable for their gross out humor, gross out scenes,
gross out special effects.
Right.
And rocking soundtracks.
Of course. And it's weird that he did Nightmare on Elm Street 3, then The Blob, but I think he's most notable for two films. And for tonight's purposes, these are the two films that we're going to focus on tonight.
The blockbusters.
Exactly. So we've got 1994's The Mask, starring Jim Carrey, now celebrating its 30th anniversary. And we're going to follow that with the 1996 Arnold Schwarzenegger actioner, Eraser. Both fun movies, good movies, but very different from one another.
Very. I would not have guessed that he did both of those movies.
Exactly, right? He is certainly a chameleon, I'd say. And these are very different from his 80s horror stuff as well.
Although I feel like at least The Mask is could be thematically linked to his earlier work, since The Mask was based on an independent it was based on an ultra-violent indie comic book.
That's right.
And New Line at the time, and when New Line first obtained the rights to it, New Line was looking to make The Mask their new Freddy Krueger.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Their new boogeyman.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, the comic books are very violent. I remember them from the early to mid 90s.
And a lot of dark humor too.
Yeah, for sure. There is a lot of dark humor in the 1994 film, but it's really not like as bad as it was in the comic books. Yeah.
It's definitely, heavily inspired by Tex Avery cartoons.
That's true. Yeah. And also the special effects were done by Industrial Light and Magic, and The Mask was nominated for the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. However, it lost to Forrest Gump that year.
I'll say competition was stiff that
year.
Yeah,
and True Lies was the third nominee back then. So they only had 3 nominees that year, and Forrest Gump took home the prize. So in 1994, I was obsessed with this movie.
Me too.
I collected newspaper clippings as a kid. I was 9 years old, and I started basically a scrapbook of all the Mask promos.
I was 6 when it came out.
Okay.
Just like probably like a month or two, 2 months shy of starting first grade.
Oh, really?
When my grandfather took me to see it with my sister and uncles.
Okay.
I immediately loved it.
As did I.
And I remember like what I remember like because my uncles had it on VHS, and every time I would go to my grandmother's house,
Hmm.
I would pop that in the VCR and watch it over and over.
I had the VHS as well. It was like a green and purple box.
Yes, and then
Um,
they did the same packaging for the DVD
mhm,
DVD release.
indeed.
And then I also had the I unfortunately I didn't have any of the toys growing up, which I want even though I wanted them, but
Right. Kenner did the line, right?
yes.
Yeah.
But I did read but I did have the Dark Horse comic book adaptation,
Nice.
which was kind of my gateway drug into which was my gateway drug into the comics.
Oh, that's funny.
And I also had the junior novelization.
No, yeah, I had that too. I had a couple of the original Mask comic books as well, and they freaked me out because it didn't feel like the movie at all.
Because well, I remember what happened was I lost my I remember because I had the comic book adaptation, but I lost it.
Okay.
And I remember going to Walden Books with my mom and finding the original Dark Horse comic.
Nice.
And I picked it up. I was like fingering through it. I showed it to my mom, and she's like, "Oh no, this is way too violent."
Yeah.
Although about a decade later, when I was in high school, I went to the comic book shop near my grandmother's house and picked it up.
Okay. Nicely done.
And it was, oh man, and I was like, wow, I was just
nice.
wow.
Yeah, it's very different from the film.
Yes, and there was also the cartoon series on CBS.
That's right, which was actually not bad. I think was it Paul Welker?
Rob Paulson.
Rob Paulson. He voiced the Mask.
Mask.
Very appropriate. That was a fun show. And it was actually they made cartoon spin-off series from the other two.
Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber. Yeah.
It was a popular year for Jim Carrey, and this movie pretty much solidified his standing as a superstar. You had Ace Ventura: Pet Detective and Dumb and Dumber later that year. I remember that was towards the fall, the winter season, and Mask was in the summer.
Yeah. Mask was the second one of the three.
Yeah. I'd say it's my favorite of the three Carrey blockbusters that year.
I don't know. I mean, as a kid, I was definitely team. If I were a kid, I would definitely say the Mask.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think nowadays I probably lean more towards Dumb and Dumber, but it's
really?
It's
fair.
It's neck and neck.
Okay.
And I will also say that it's one of my favorite, because I have on Letterboxd, I have a list of favorite comic book movies that are not DC or Marvel. And the Mask is on that list.
Nicely done. Nicely done. So we've got Jim Carrey in a title role here. We've got an interesting cast. Peter Riegert, who plays the detective.
Lieutenant Calloway.
Yeah. Peter Green, who plays the villain Dorian, who's fantastic, actually. You might know him from
Pulp Fiction.
The final scene of Pulp Fiction, sure. And also Under Siege 2 and Usual Suspects. So 1994, 1995 was a very busy year for Peter Green. Amy Yasbeck, who was married to John Ritter.
She was also on. I think wasn't she on Wings?
Maybe it's possible.
Yeah, but she had done Robin Hood Men in Tights the year before.
That's right. Yeah, that too.
As Maid Marian.
Richard Jeni, the late Richard Jeni, he passed. Very popular comedian in the 90s. And of course Cameron Diaz
in her first movie.
Right. So you've got a very stacked cast here. It's really good. Chuck Russell did a great job helming this project, and it does feel kind of big budget, and that's the point.
It was actually pretty low on the low end. All the budget itself was kind of on the low end.
Oh, was it?
Because it was 18 to $23 million.
It grossed 351 on an 18 to 20. Yeah, so it did very, very well, and it felt more expensive than I guess it actually was. And I think that's largely due to not only Jim Carrey's performance, but the production design and visual effects.
Yes.
Which are stellar, in my opinion. And I'm really, happy to be talking about this now because it's one of my all-time favorite Jim Carrey performances, all-time favorite Jim Carrey movies.
Mine too.
Also, the score by Randy Edelman is fantastic. You and I had the
we saw him live and he performed a piece from it.
Yeah.
Or he brought like the theme from it.
He played a little snippet, the opening theme, the theme.
Yes.
And that was just magical. Probably nobody else in that audience really appreciated it as much as we did.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Probably because we were the right age when the movie came out. So.
Right. And even during the film, Randy Edelman's his underscore for the action sequences, it sounded very similar to Ghostbusters 2, in my opinion. That was kind of his style in the late 80s, early 90s, and it transfers over very well with The Mask. Yeah, I mean, this movie is so much fun. Do you have a favorite scene, a scene that sticks out?
Oh man, a favorite scene that sticks out. Definitely the Cuban. I would say the Cuban beat number.
Right,
great.
right. That's funny.
Coco when he's in the Oh man, I'd say no. I would say when he first becomes when he first puts on the mask,
How about this?
and he scares his landlord,
Right.
and then and then there's this guy who nearly mowed him down early in the movie. He gets
Right.
back at him and the two mechanics,
Right. Which
Uh,
the interior was used for Ghostbusters.
and Big Trouble in Little China.
That's right. And a lot of other things, I'm sure.
Right. Also, the Coco. I would say the Coco Bongo is used in a lot. The interior of the
It's-
Coco was
I mean,
TV shows.
it's hard to narrow down one particular scene. But I love, the
Yes.
stuff where, when he's in when he first transforms into the mask, he's in the alleyway and he
Yes, the
confronts
bu- the balloon-
those
the
hoods.
gang.
Yeah, yeah.
And he makes like balloon animal. He's making all his balloon animals, and then makes a balloon Tommy gun.
Yeah. And I love all the stuff with Dorian. I think Peter
Yes.
Green is an underrated actor. He does gravitate towards villainous roles, but I think he has more range. I've never seen him outside of a bad guy role. Have you?
No, I can't. I
Yeah.
can't think of anything he's done beyond like bad guy role.
Yeah.
But Peter Rieger, I remember this was the first thing I saw him in. But
Animal House.
Animal House,
Right, right.
the Animal House.
Right. It's good to see him in something else. Yeah, and of course, this is the film debut of Cameron Diaz.
Diaz.
So it's really
And I just immediately fell in love with her.
Oh, sure. I think everyone in the audience did. I did as well. And she's a beautiful woman.
has had a great
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
Her career just blew up
Yeah.
after that.
Basically, her and Jim Carrey, their superstardom, it was kind of like neck and neck, I'd say. And it's a fun movie. And guys, if you haven't seen it, I know we've already had some spoilers. It is a 30-year-old
yeah,
movie.
it's 30 years old.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, though, I recommend it highly.
Me too.
So all right, final thoughts on The Mask?
Final thoughts of The Mask. I mean, it's one of. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, it's nothing like it's. I mean, even though I've since become a fan.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It is not very lighthearted compared to its comic book counterpart.
Yeah.
But it's still but as a standalone, so as an adaptation, kind of is like a little. Maybe not. I don't want to say watered down, but
I'd say watered down for a family audience.
Yeah, but it's still a fun movie. But on its own, it's still a fun movie.
Right.
Largely due to Jim Carrey and the special effect and Jim Carrey and the special effects. It's still one of my favorite movies of his. And again, it is one of my favorite. It's still one of my favorite comic book movies.
Yeah.
It
holds up.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe that ILM, who did the visual effects, had to kind of keep up with Jim Carrey's performance because they kind of mirrored his movements a little bit for the CGI, which is very cool, I must say. And
actually, just to say, I know because I was wondering off the comics. I will say it's just. I will say if it hadn't been for that movie, I would not have discovered the comics.
Really? Okay.
Same with Howard the Duck. Like, yeah, I mean, say what you will about that movie, but that was also if I hadn't seen that, if I hadn't gotten into that movie, I might have not gotten into the comic book it was adapted from.
Now, if and when they eventually do reboot Howard the Duck into another live action film, I would hope that they would get Chuck Russell to direct it with ILM by his side. I think this is the perfect tone for a Howard the Duck movie adaptation.
That would be interesting.
You know what I mean?
Looking at what Chuck Russell's been up to in the last 20 years, that's like,
I know. But you know what? Let's finish up the later years of Chuck Russell after our second review, which is the 1996 Arnold Schwarzenegger film Eraser. Now, this movie I think holds up really well. It's not very intelligent, but it is a fun action thrill ride. This was actually the last of Arnold Schwarzenegger's quote unquote classic period, his classic era of action.
The golden age of Arnold,
which I believe started with the Conan movies in the early to mid 80s.
Yes, early 80s, and then he
kind of Terminator made it, blew him up into a megastar.
Well, there was a kind of a speed bump with The Last Action Hero, which very enjoyable movie, but I think at the time audiences and critics didn't get it. So, or audiences and critics at the time were not very receptive to it, so it didn't do very well.
Well, you know what?
But he bounced back with True Lies.
I love Last Action Hero though.
Me too.
That movie holds a soft spot.
I just think it was just a movie ahead of its time. Very ahead of its time.
I just don't think audiences got it. It's sad. But it has a cult following now, and I think
it's found its audience. It's found its audience. It's found its fans.
It's 31 years old now, so it definitely has developed a following. But Eraser. So Chuck Russell, he went from The Mask 2 years later to do Eraser, which is a complete. I mean, it's not a complete. I mean, it's just a very, very different film.
Yes.
You know, Mask was a zany fantasy comedy. Now Eraser, it's pretty much just a straightforward action film.
Right.
And I think Arnold's fantastic in it.
Right.
Vanessa Williams is great too. She's not like this helpless damsel in distress.
No.
She's a strong, confident woman, and her performance is fantastic. I'm not really sure about her other acting work.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of her. To be honest, I don't think I've seen much of her
Yeah,
acting work either beyond like beyond that. I'm sure she's been in, I mean,
right. Well, we
I'm sure
definitely
I've seen her in other things,
we
but
definitely know she's Miss America 1984.
yes, and she was also a Syracuse alum. That's that's
Oh, nice.
my hometown.
Perfect. So yeah, we're in good company with her in this podcast right now. So yeah, she's great in Eraser. She's a badass kind of. And so in the movie, if those who are not familiar, basically Arnold plays a witness protection program U.S. Marshal who's assigned to protect Vanessa Williams' character. And basically James Caan is in it too. I don't know if we should. We'll
He's the
spoil it.
villain.
He's the villain. It's a spoiler. Yeah, he's the villain.
Admitting this movie's like 28 years old. So.
You're right. So yeah, so I think it works very well. I love the railgun. I think that was a fantastic prop. It was a very cool technology that they displayed. Basically, it's essentially a laser cannon, and the way they use it, in the end scene where Arnold is in that dock and he has two rail guns on each arm. It's just fantastic to see that, to see him just kill like hundreds of people with these rail guns. It's great. Also, Alan Silvestri did the score, which was very good. It reminded me a little bit of another Arnold film,
Predator.
My
favorite movie that he's done, and one of my top 10 movies of all time.
Nice, I know you're a big fan of that. So yeah, it's a great film and good special effects. I think it wasn't nominated for best visual effects at the Oscars, but sound effects editing, was it? Yeah.
Yes.
Sound effects editing, but lost to The Ghost and the Darkness, which was a Michael Douglas, Val Kilmer film, which was adequate. So yeah, this movie, I'm a fan, big fan.
I'll admit, I don't watch it as much as Predator or the Terminator movies or Total Recall or Commando.
Yeah.
Like those are the ones, like those are my top 5 Arnold movies.
Sure. Those are prime Arnold action movies.
Yeah, and also the Conan, and also Conan and Kindergarten Cop.
My favorite Arnold action film is definitely True Lies. Because
True Lies is, I would think it was I think that was in my opinion, his last great movie.
Well, yeah, Eraser's good. It's fun. It's action packed. It's funny in some parts.
Yes.
But True Lies is definitely, he went out with a bang there. After Eraser, I believe he did Jingle All the Way.
Which as a movie, as a kid I watched, I was like, okay, it's entertaining. But then I was a teenager, I'm like, this movie stinks. But now as an adult, I like it. I just like it for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But then Jingle All the Way, Batman and Robin, End of Days. It just seems like by the end of the 90s, he was
in 1998, I think he took a little break from acting because I think he had heart surgery or something like that. So yeah, I think he took a much needed hiatus, and then he came back swinging with End of Days, where he was fighting the devil. I actually like that movie a lot. It's directed by Peter Hyams, who's done a bunch of great films.
I remember seeing that when it came out.
Yeah.
And the ending was a little too much of a downer for me.
Yeah.
I expected him to die in like the Terminator movies, but just seeing him getting
Yeah. It was a little unfortunate.
And then after that he did a couple other movies like
Collateral Damage was disappointing, I'd say.
The Sixth Day?
That was terrible. That was 2000.
He just like had one. It seems like from the late 90s to the early up until T3.
Yeah.
He just had like one dud after another.
I'd say between Jingle All the Way and his his governor period, that's just a terrible time for him. It did not work out. Film wise, it was not his time. But he's very rich, so I think he'll recover.
I'm sure he was crying in a $100 bill, but still, but no, Eraser. Like I said, I don't watch it as much as his as a lot of his stuff from the 80s and early 90s, but
Yeah.
it's still a very fun movie. It's still a very entertaining movie with a lot of great action.
Mm-hmm.
And Arnold, of course, gives a very he's very charismatic
Yes.
and kick ass.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he definitely showed that he was the action hero of the 80s and 90s.
Or the action hero.
I mean, Stallone was good. Bruce Willis was good too, but Arnold was the king.
Okay,
Yes. I'd say he's the king. I want to go back to The Mask a little bit, and because I did not say what the plot was, but I'm assuming that everyone listening to this podcast right now knows the plot of The Mask.
Right.
But it's just a fun fantasy comedy about a regular guy, Stanley Ipkiss, who comes in contact with this ancient mythological
Norse.
Is it Norse?
Yes, it was because there was a prologue that was filmed. It's on the DVD and Blu-ray releases, but it was filmed and deleted. But it's on the Blu-ray and DVD.
I didn't see that scene.
And it was in the comic book adaptation.
So they showed that the Vikings like kind of getting rid of the mask.
Yes,
that's cool. That's cool. They should have kept that. I mean, that would have been like a nice like a minute sequence that they should have stuck with. But basically, this wooden mask from that era, Stanley Ipkiss puts it on and he becomes this fantastical
cartoon, like living cartoon character.
Yeah, like almost like a superhero. Like he's got superpowers, but he's not really a superhero. He's kind of like an anti-hero who does, crazy things. And it's basically in the vein of like Bugs Bunny, Donald Duck, Daffy Duck, and Tex Avery cartoons.
Yes.
And it's just hilarious to watch. I'm sure ILM had a field day with this movie.
Oh, for sure.
And there were a lot of nods. There was one nod specifically to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was also done by ILM, and countless other cartoon references. So yeah, and of course references to the actual comic book source material. Just a lot of fun. Perfect for a little kid to enjoy. I'd say this film because it wasn't super violent.
No,
which was good. If you look at Chuck Russell's previous works, like the ones we mentioned, The Blob and Dream Warriors, super violent,
yes.
ultra violent, many deaths, a lot of gore, really good special effects and makeup effects, I'd say. But The Mask is more tame. I believe it's a PG-13 rated film, which is good.
Even though it's funny, which is kind of ironic, since the movie did have dark, given the darker origins of the source material, and what New Line originally had in mind for it, before Jim Carrey and before Jim Carrey came aboard.
Before he came aboard, who did they have in mind for the role?
I don't know.
Oh, actually, wait a minute. Let me see here. I think I have it.
I don't know, but in the comic books, Stanley Ipkiss was a much more unlikable character.
Here it is. Okay. Before Jim Carrey was cast, Nicolas Cage, Matthew Broderick, Steve Martin,
Rick Moranis, Martin Short,
Mike Myers, John Ritter, Robin Williams. Okay.
I mean, Nicolas Cage is probably the only one there that kind of seems like he had done comedies, but
also says Will Ferrell turned down the role.
No, he
wasn't even relevant back then.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even
he wasn't even on SNL
yet. No. Yeah. I seriously, I think that's one of those things that someone just made up for IMDb.
Maybe. Damn it, they're screwing with us. Could you imagine Nicolas Cage as The Mask?
That would have been. I feel like he could have done a good if they had done a more comic book accurate version of Stanley, who was a very a very unlikable character. I think Nicolas Cage could have pulled that off. Funny enough, because the mask that we see, because actually I'm sorry, I'm gonna info dump a bit, but but in the comics, the more cartoonish hero mask that we see in the movie, was actually happened when Calloway put on the mask.
Oh, really?
Spoiler alert for anybody who's never read the comics.
Very nice. Okay.
Because in the comics, Stanley was more of a villain, while Calloway was more of the hero.
Interesting. I did not know that. That's a nice little twist. I would have liked to have seen some of that.
And the Stanley we see in this movie is more of an amalgamation of comic book Calloway and.
Now here's something a real shame. In 2005, they made a sequel called Son of the Mask.
I remember back in the 90s, Nintendo Power had a contest,
right,
where the winner could have a walk-on role in The Mask too.
Right.
And I remember hearing about it on Entertainment Tonight,
And I think
back in like 95, 96.
and
But
I think people were like, "Oh, if Jim Carrey's in, I'll be in. I'll do that contest."
yeah,
But then they find out.
I was waiting years for it.
But then Jim Carrey was announced to not be in the sequel, and a lot of people were like disappointed.
well, after a while, I just thought that the whole thing was dead.
Yeah.
And then until I found out about Son of the Mask, and I remember seeing the trailer, and I'm like, no way, I'll pass.
Yeah.
I'll pass.
Well,
I did catch it on television though.
Well, you know what? It was 11 years after the first film, and at that point, I was not a little kid anymore.
No, I was in high school.
But if this movie came out 2 years after the first Mask, I would have been on board. But,
Me too.
But Jamie Kennedy was awful. There was nothing good about this film. Alan Cumming was terrible too.
Yeah.
Ben Stein.
There was a lot of good there was actually a lot of talent that was wasted in this movie. Bob Hoskins.
Yeah. Ben Stein was in it too. He reprised his role as a psychiatrist from the first film, and it was just so bad. The execution was so not there. And I think Randy Edelman came back to do the score. He did.
He did.
Just a total train wreck, I must say. Really unnecessary. If they did a reboot, I say Nicolas Cage should be in it.
I don't know. I think they're gonna have to go with someone else. It's I don't know. At this point, I don't know if I could see Nicolas Cage doing it.
I think it would be hilarious.
I mean, I could see him as maybe Kellaway.
No.
But not as Stanley.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see if they ever do it. They might do it. We'll see. I hope. But they have to do it the right way. Bring back Chuck Russell, please. He's a great director. Except I did not see Scorpion King, and I'm assuming that's pretty bad. So he's had some hits or misses.
Yeah.
So
and then it seems like since Scorpion King, he's just done a lot of. He did a lot of straight to video and VOD movies. Quite a few which had John Travolta.
Right.
And then he did a Bollywood movie. Which
I still can't believe that. When you told me that, I was like, what?
Yeah, I didn't. No, I was just as surprised as you were.
Yeah, that is so random. It's not even funny. But yeah, guys. So Chuck Russell, check him out.
He does a lot of producing though. He produced Michael Mann's Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx.
Fantastic film. Again, hits or misses. That's his filmography. Chuck Russell, ladies and gentlemen. So we have a few minutes left, and I just wanted to speak to you if you have any plugs, far as anything going on you want to talk about.
Oh man, I've been really busy lately on working on stuff. I just actually had a move. I was an actor producer on a movie called Screenwalkers. It's a shot on video slasher film.
Cool.
It's kind of like if movies like Screamer, I Know What You Did Last Summer had been made by a bunch of middle schoolers with a camcorder.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun though. But yeah, it premiered at Creature Feature Weekend last weekend.
Okay.
And we had a great turnout for it.
Cool.
I've also been working.
Wait, a Creature Feature Weekend, is that like a film festival?
It's a horror convention.
Horror convention. Okay.
In Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh right, I heard. Yeah, that's cool. Nice.
So there's that. I've been working on. I also worked on. I've been working doing background work on shows like Law and Order, Blue Bloods, Daredevil.
Nice. Oh, Daredevil, really?
Yes, the new season. Yes, the new season of Daredevil on Disney Plus, and also
cool.
I also recently worked on a show called Long Bright River with Amanda Seyfried. That'll be premiering on Peacock.
Okay. How was your experience on Daredevil? If you can talk about that.
Wow, easiest pay. I will just say one of my easiest paychecks I ever got.
Oh yeah. Did you meet Charlie Cox?
He was on set, but I didn't see him.
Okay, cool. That's fun, man. A working actor in our presence. Yes. This is lovely.
And also, I can now say I have followed the likes of James Gunn, Vincent D'Onofrio, Samuel L. Jackson, and Marissa Tomei in the Troma to Marvel pipeline.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, so Mr. Forrest Bennett is a seasoned veteran in the Troma universe. And you were Toxie, which is amazing.
Yes.
Real quick, what was that experience like?
It was a bucket. Oh man, it was a role of a lifetime role. Even though I didn't really have to do much, but just to wear that, just to play Troma's their mascot, their kind of their basically the character.
That's their Mickey Mouse.
They're Mickey. Yes, they're Mickey Mouse. The character that put them on the map.
Right.
play that role. And I'm someone who grew up watching Toxic, especially someone who grew up watching Toxic Crusaders as a
Right,
kid.
same here. I even have the action figure
Me,
right there.
I have that same
Yeah,
figure.
hold on. So here it is. This is Toxie from Toxic Avengers, Toxic Crusaders. And
Another character that had very like adult origins that got
that's right.
a kid-friendly treatment
They're coming out with a reboot, I believe.
with Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, that should be very weird, but I'm excited to see that.
I'm honored to have been replaced by Peter Dinklage.
For sure, for sure. Anything else going on, Forrest? We're
Oh.
about to wrap up here.
Oh man, I've always got something going. I've
Yeah.
always got something going on in the pipeline.
All right.
Also, recently filmed an episode of Law and Order. I think I said,
You mentioned that.
yeah, I filmed Law and Order, Blue Bloods. Yeah, just yeah, always yeah. I mean, just if you're ever watching any shows set in New York, set or filmed in New York, keep an eye out for me. I'll probably pop up at some point.
This is our guy right here, Forrest Bennett. And as for me, plugs for Under the Radar, you can check out Under the Radar, all new episodes Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on through Slam Radio, SXM through Sirius XM. Also, the video version of this podcast will be on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and that's every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And as always, please feel free to subscribe to the Under the Radar YouTube channel, subscribe and share the love. So Forrest, I want to thank you for tonight. This was great.
Thank you for having me back. It's we need to do this more often.
Sure. Well, I'll see you soon, I'm sure. And yeah, I'm Randy Younger. This has been Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. We'll see you next time. Take care.